It's a kind of a nerve-wracking experience for a lot of people. It's like moving to a new country to learn a new language. And so, how did your plan or how did your imagination meet reality when you were there? Like, was it exactly how you imagined it, or what did it feel like being inside of the boot camp?
Yeah. So the boot camp experience was amazing in a lot of ways. I will say that I wasn't scared. I think that we may not have time on the show to talk about my like childhood and other experiences, but I've had experiences where I have picked up and like left home and like gone into a program or gone to do something that I'd never done before with people I didn't know. Mm-hmm. So having had that experience, I wasn't afraid of doing this new thing. It was all very exciting to me.
Yeah.
And I was extremely focused. I could tell from listening to the podcast episodes mm-hmm. that there was this formula that I mentioned before, and that if I executed the formula well, mm-hmm. that I would be able to be not only, finish program, get a job, but finish the program, get a job quickly, and get a good job, a well-paying job, right?
Yeah.
And so what I was extremely focused on just carrying out that plan and working as hard as I could.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So take us back to the boot camp. I guess like the first day or the first week of being on campus, surrounded by other people who are learning how to code. What did that feel like?
Man, it feels like so long ago. So Dev Bootcamp is set up a little bit differently. It's 18 weeks instead of the typical 9 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's split in half. So the first half is remote and the second half is on campus. Mm-hmm. So when I moved out to California and started the program, I was in the first half of the boot camp, mm-hmm. which is basically online assignments. And also you did have like coding pairing sessions that you did through like Google Hangouts with people. The hour like requirement was a lot less. It was like 20 to 30 hours a week.
Yeah.
So it was actually, I think, really helpful in helping you like kind of slowly get into the rhythm. Yeah. And it also allowed me to revisit all the things that I had already been learning. Yeah. And I also took it upon myself to use that extra time to start networking. Mm-hmm. And so every day I would have at least one or two meetings in San Francisco or Oakland where I would go and I would just ask people who had either been to a boot camp or who work in the industry what their experiences are, like how have they been able to be successful, like what advice do they have. So from very, very early on, I was strategizing. I was like, I was using that formula. And I think after talking to so many people and hearing about their experiences, it just made me more and more and more confident and more sure of what I needed to do and how I needed to approach like the on-campus portion. Yeah. So, then the second 9 weeks happens. We start the on-campus portion and, you know ahead of time that it's going to be a lot of hours. And the program itself was 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Mm-hmm. And I had told myself that I would stay till 10 p.m. every night, that I would not leave until 10 p.m.
Yeah.
And
discipline.
Yes. And even if my classmates, a lot of them would just leave at 6. Yeah. Some of them would stay maybe 30 minutes to an hour and then leave. Yeah. Sometimes they would want to go and get drinks or like something like that. And I made it a policy to not go. Yeah. And I would tell them I'm not going to go.
Discipline. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Sacrifices.
And so I think the benefit of that is that I took it very seriously. If there was something that I didn't understand, which there were moments where that happened, where we all were struggling to understand a concept. And I took that time after classes to really, really go over it in detail. And I think that helped me a lot in that I was able to, I was one of the higher performers in my program. Like, the exams and things like that were
cake.
I mean, I wouldn't call them cake, but I did very well.
Yeah, you put in the work. And I think for the people listening that are getting excited about Dev Bootcamp, I think it's important to clarify that Dev Bootcamp no longer exists, but it did birth some of the best coding bootcamps in the space that still exists. They also did something that was very unique, that was different. I think they had like an emotional learning portion, or like, I'm not sure if they still have that there.
It was called Engineering Empathy.
Yeah. So what's that?
So, sorry to cut you off, but so once a week, or I think it was once a week or once every other week, you would have a session with all of your classmates, and it would be facilitated by an instructor, and we would cover some sort of topic, whether it was like communicating how you feel, or giving or receiving feedback, positive and negative feedback, understanding biases, like your own biases, how to kind of listen to other people when they're like, when they're coming forward about experiences that they may have, or when you witness like someone being discriminated against, things like that. And I thought that was a very cool part of the program.
Yeah. How did that make you feel, just like being a teacher, and like how did that stand out to you when it came to like, or how did you incorporate that, or how are you incorporating that today?
Yeah. So, to be completely honest, I think that the program itself was very beneficial.
Yeah.
I will also say that I've had the privilege of having educational experiences throughout my life where I did similar things. Yeah. So there wasn't anything for me that was particularly new.
That's real.
To be honest.
Yeah. What about the coding portion of the coding portion of the program? I know you're an educator, so how is the learning different in a boot camp than the learning that people experience in colleges or high schools?
Yeah, so I thought that the learning fit my learning style way better than what I had in college, which is I'm a hands-on kinesthetic learner. I have a very hard time sitting in a room listening to someone talk for more than like 20 minutes, to be honest, unless
I'm surprised you liked our podcast.
Unless it's a topic that's extremely engaging. Yeah. I will check out, and sometimes I will fall asleep. So, and it was actually my major in college involved a lot of lectures. So it was actually very difficult for me to get through college. Yeah. So Dev Bootcamp was in many ways like a breath of fresh air, because it was like, oh my God, I can do this all day. Yeah. Like, give me an assignment that I have to do with my hands. Yeah. It's kind of like solving a puzzle. That's how the assignments were. Yeah. It's like, here's the directions, here's these little pieces of the puzzle. Yeah. Now go figure it out. Find the other pieces and put it together.
Would you describe yourself as like a math person?
No.
Got it. Because a lot of people get confused about that. So this puzzle thing, like as someone that's not a math person, like how would you describe it? Like, because I think a lot of people would find inspiration, or find it inspiring to hear, that you don't have to be a math person to learn how to code.
Yeah. So coding is in many ways about logic. It has, you can have a focus within coding that has to do with math. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, it's about being able to think logically about how to solve a problem. Yeah. And a lot of people use logic in a lot of different professions outside of math. Yeah. And so I think that that's really important to understand. In my current job at Mailchimp, I don't think I've had to do I know that I haven't had to do any sort of math, not once, since I've been there.
Yeah. That's good feedback.
And can you give examples of the types of logic that you have to kind of work through?
So it's hard for me to explain this.
Is it like if else statements, things like that? Yeah.
So it's kind of like, you let's say, for example, you're getting a bunch of data. Yeah. And you want to output a certain information based on this data. You have to say, okay, well, if the data looks like this, then you want to output that. If the data looks like that, then you want to output something else. If the data is a little bit of this and a little bit of that, or some of this and not some of that, or something along those lines, it's like you have to kind of figure out how to piece it together in a way where you get the output that you want. It's kind of hard to explain. I need more practice with that.
And anyone can do a Code Academy course that's a few hours long, and they'll get an idea about what coding is like.
Yeah.
But your journey actually had a lot of bumps along the way. So the first bump we talked about was like the bootcamp you got conditionally accepted to. It didn't end up kind of accepting you, so then you ended up you had to choose a different one. But then something else happened. Can you share that?
Yeah. So so I'm living with Idaline and Rita, and I'm loving being there, and we're getting to like almost the end of the first part of the boot camp.
Yeah.
And Rita gets a job offer in New York City.
Yeah.
And Rita was also a guest on our podcast.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Her story is super dope.
Yeah, Rita and Idaline are sisters. And Idaline travels a lot for work, so she doesn't have to be in a specific place.
Yeah.
Right. So Rita gets this job offer, and it's this amazing opportunity, and the lease is about to be up at the end of the month.
Yep.
So they either have to give it up at the end of the month or not.
Yeah.
So Rita decides that she wants to move, and she sits me down and tells me, "Look, the lease ends in 10 days,
Dang.
and then we got to be out of here." So,
and housing is hard to find in San Francisco.
And housing is extremely hard to find.
Especially when you're on a budget.
And it's expensive. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, of course, this was another stressful situation. I didn't know what I was going to do. I have friends out here, but not people who, out here, people are renting bedrooms in a house.
Yeah.
People don't just have like a spare bedroom that they can like let you stay in.
Yeah.
And if they're renting a bedroom in a house with 3 or 4 other roommates, then you can't just be like, "Oh, can I crash on your couch?" Because they share that couch with 4 or 5 other people. So it wasn't easy to just ask people if I could stay with them. But I had a friend who from college who was living in Pittsburgh, which is like an hour away.
That's
or
wild.
like 45
Pittsburgh,
minutes
California.
away. Pittsburgh, California, which is like East Bay.
Yeah. The far East Bay.
And he was actually living with another friend of ours who we went to college with. His mom has a house there.
Wow.
And
Just in case you thought we forgot about family.
Yeah, you can't forget about family, man. So she said that I could stay. And actually, my friend let me stay in his bedroom, and he slept downstairs on the couch.
Wow.
For a whole week.
Amazing.
So I stayed there. Then I went and I stayed with another friend. This is Jackie.
This is all as you're trying to learn how to code.
All as I'm still doing the program. Also, shout out to Salif. Salif is the one who I stayed with the first time.
Yeah.
Then the second week I stayed with Jackie. Jackie I met through Idaline and Rita.
Oh, I know Jackie.
Jackie's amazing. Jackie's helped me out multiple times since then. Stayed with him for a week, and then throughout that time I was able to get housing at San Francisco Student Housing in San Francisco.
I remember that you pulled up in a car, I think. And you were like, "Hey, Ruben, can you pick up the car?"
Yeah. It was, So it was Idaline's car, actually, that I was using to, like, keep all my stuff in because I had all this stuff and I didn't know where to put it.
Yeah.
So, I had a lot of help, and I had to ask for help, which
How did that make you feel?
Which is not easy. I mean, I wouldn't say that I was embarrassed because I knew that I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
But it's hard because you don't want to put people in an uncomfortable position.
Yeah.
And sometimes people don't have the capacity or the resources to help.
Yeah.
And even if they do, it's not comfortable to like give up your space to someone else. So it was hard, but it was like, I don't have any other choice. It's either this or I go home, and that's not an option. So
yeah.
And I think I would also add, because a lot of people think reaching out to others, especially strangers, it's a scary thing, but people generally understand the struggles that folks go through to career transition. And like just listening to your story, I can definitely relate to the moment of like switching houses and not knowing where you're going to sleep in a week. But I think people in tech specifically are more understanding. So I'm glad that you were actually asking for help and you were posting in our group. Because the mistake I see a lot of people make is they go through these struggles alone. Mm-hmm. And even though there's other people who could help them, those people don't know unless you ask them.
Yeah. And it rarely works too, because we've seen tons of people who want to be self-reliant and they don't want to ask for help. And with career transitioning, you're bound to hit bumps along the way.
Yeah.
And so you have to be a team player and just kind of ask for help. And then what you could do is return that help when you get a job, and you can help someone else break in.
Exactly. And I think, you made this plan, and you're getting to the end of the program, and you're getting ready for the job search, and you have already done your research, and you already knew what the average time is to search for a job. And a lot of people don't even know what that is. And even with that time, you were starting to get to a point where you might have had to move back to Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So can you talk about that struggle, or that thought process, and like what made you stick around, and what the decisions were? I think it was around the holidays again.
Yeah, it was very close to the holidays. So my program ended in November.
Yeah.
And which is also a pretty slow hiring period.
Yeah.
So my program ends, and I find out, and at this my savings is like about to hit zero.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, I have a very short amount of time before I am gonna run out of money.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to get this stipend from Yes We Code.
Yeah.
And there ended up being some issues.
Yeah.
Right. They didn't know if I would be. There was like some miscommunications. Yeah. We didn't know if I was going to get it. Eventually, I did end up getting it later on down the road. But there was a period of time where like it was delayed.
Yeah.
And so I figured out a way to get out of my housing, because even though I was staying at San Francisco student housing, which was actually cheaper than being with Edeline.
Yeah.
So that actually worked out too. And that's another thing that I just want to say is that I truly believe that when you are on your path, serendipitous things will happen.
Boom, preach.
I promise you, like Edeline and Rita left. I found this place, San Francisco student housing. The rent was like a few $100s cheaper, and I was a mile away from campus. So I didn't have to take the BART anymore. I just had to walk 20 minutes to class every day, which also allowed me to stay later every day because I didn't have to worry about taking public transportation home. And so every time there was some sort of like bump in the road, there was something else that would happen that was just like magical. And it was always, I think, a sign that I just needed to push forward. Yeah. So I'll just say that.
Yeah,
so
it's a blessing. So
I graduate from the program, and I'm job hunting, and I'm still like continuing like a really solid schedule, and I run out of money. And so I reached out to I think I had a conversation with
I think it was Artur this time.
Oh no, it was Artur. Yeah. It was Artur.
Okay. Yeah. It may have been me.
I think we were doing like a practice coding challenge, practice interview.
Yep.
And during the interview, you asked me how I was doing, and I told you that I was running out of money, and you were like, you know what, you should do a GoFundMe or like a crowdfunding campaign. And I was like, you know what, I don't think I can. Like, that's embarrassing. Like, I've done crowdfunding for a cause or something like that, but I've never done it to ask for money just for me to pay for like food. Like, I was like, I don't know about that. Yeah. But then like 2 weeks later,
I remember I floated the idea, and you weren't very excited about it initially.
No, I was not.
I think it was we were in New York over winter break, and I think you stayed in San Francisco. You didn't go home for holidays, but Artur was like sitting on the couch doing mock interviews, and then he was talking about GoFundMe. So I was like, I hope she does it.
Yeah, and he has both of us up. He was like, hey, Timur, Ruben, what do you think about like helping Iris with her GoFundMe campaign? I'm like, all right, let's try it. Yeah. And then he was like, I mean, we got a community. Let's see what we could do. I mean, we always talk about family. Yeah. And so you set it up. You sent it to Artur, and then Artur was like, yo, it's live. Tweet it out.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing was you were putting in the work. It's not like you just like graduated from the boot camp and you were just like chilling and you were just like, I need help, someone to pay for my rent. You were actually like hitting up people, emailing folks at companies. You had already like on sites with a few different companies as well. You didn't go back home for Thanksgiving or Christmas, so you were alone.
Sacrifice.
Like I remember on Christmas when I think I may have texted you like Happy Christmas, and you're like, yeah, like I'm here in San Francisco, and I was like, are you like, is there anyone like around you? You're like, nope.
all the people from my boot camp were gone.
Wow.
They all went home.
So you were alone like on Christmas.
Wow.
preparing for.
I was studying.
Yeah, you were studying, and I remember when I heard that, I was like, she's someone that definitely deserves it. And it's not even like that it's not even asking people for help. Like with the GoFundMe, you're actually giving people a chance to invest in you and like to believe in you. And there's so many people that want to encourage folks like yourself to break into tech.
Yeah. And not just because of, like, people believe in you, but you believe in yourself and you put in the work and you were dedicated. And, you know, you when you set up the page, you had to create these pages. Like, it takes work. Like, so you had to put some kind of content. What'd you put in there? You know, how much were you trying to raise? Why did you choose that number?
Man,
yeah.
I don't remember the content. Yeah. To be honest.
It's all good.
But I think the amount I wanted to raise was $4,000. And yeah, I think I put my story in the content, like some short version of my story. Yeah. Which is also, I think, very important and has helped me along the way, is knowing exactly what my story is and being able to explain it in a very clear way. Yeah. And I think that along with all of y'all's help, I think that played a role in people wanting to donate to me as well. But yeah, so the amount was $4,000. I sent it out to y'all, and within an hour we raised, I think within 2 hours we raised $1,000. Yep. And within something like 16 or 18 hours, we raised the full 4,000.
Yeah. I remember Ruben sitting on Twitter, and he would just hit up his whole list. Yeah. And didn't Star Jones.
Star Jones.
There's a bunch of people that tweeted out.
Alexis Ohanian and Nick Caldwell. Like, a lot of people were donated and commenting, like people that I didn't even expect, and like not just small amounts, big amounts. And I have goosebumps thinking about it right now, but then you hit your goal, and it was dope.
Yeah, we hit more than the goal. It ended up being something like 46 or 4,800. It was very close to 5,000.